And a very good afternoon to you from the sports desk. Let's start with some local football. Swallows FC announced yesterday that the club will return to the original name, Moroka Swallows, effective immediately. The Dube Birds seem to be heading back to the glory days after they appointed Steve Komphela just last week as their new head coach. Swallows secured a top 8 finish for the first time since their return to top flight in 2020. At the time, there were legal disputes between the old owner, Prins, and the new management led by David Mogashoa, who joins us now to tell us more about their plans for this season. Mogashoa, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mabel, and good afternoon to your viewers as well.
Let's start with maybe clarity of sorts as to what was the issue as far as the name is concerned. Why was the club not able to call itself Moroka Swallows FC as it is traditionally known?
Look, there was nothing preventing us from using the name Moroka Swallows, except we wanted to do some due diligence to check what else is there that was hidden behind the old Moroka Swallows. 2 cases came up that got us FIFA banned about a season ago. So those cases were resolved. Then we decided that since those were resolved, then we can now use the name Moroka Swallows.
But why did it take this long? Was it a question of dealing with those legal disputes? And was it something that you as the current Swallows management had to deal with, or was it the previous Swallows management that had to account for those cases?
No, we had to account for those cases. The reason why it also took long is because, we were challenging them because we were saying we were not part of the old management of Moroka Swallows. But unfortunately with FIFA, they work differently. So if you're using the same colors, using the same venue, they say you are the same person. So we had to deal with those issues and make sure they are sorted out before we register as Moroka Swallows. But also another reason is that you can't change the name when the season is running. So we had to wait for the season to finish so that we can apply for the new name.
So what effectively changed this time around? Why? What is the difference now that we are no longer using the name Moroka Swallows to refer to the club, but or rather Swallows FC, and now back to the old name? What changed?
Nothing changed except for we're now adding Moroka onto Swallows. Everything else stays the same, and then we move forward.
And what does this mean in the bigger scheme of things? Because, I mean, a club as big as Moroka Swallows, as it were, many have been questioning whether it still is the same club that we know from back in the days, from Moroka Rovers and so on.
It means now we go back to basics. We need to find the right people in the right department. As you mentioned, we've got the coach, Steve Komphela. He's going to make sure that, the club performs well. And a bit of correction there. It's the second time we make it into the top 8. So, we want to make sure that the club stays in the top 8 and above. We can't be languishing and fighting relegation. So we now need to make sure that the club performs well and our supporters come back to the stadium.
Talk to me about that appointment of coach Steve Komphela. Did you have to break the bank to take him away from Mamelodi Sundowns, the champions?
Look, Coach Steve still had a year left in his contract, so there were negotiations between the club and Coach Steve's agents. So, we did break the bank a bit. If you want to restore dignity of the club and make sure that the club now competes with other big clubs, you have to now make sacrifices. So Coach Steve was one of the sacrifices that we made, and there's still going to be 1 or 2 sacrifices that we make in terms of the playing personnel to make sure that the club can compete and fight for trophies.
It looks like it's almost a rebuilding phase for Swallows. Is that part of the reason why you brought in an experienced coach like Steve Komphela? And I know that we always talk about mandate when it comes to coaches. What is his mandate as the head coach of Moroka Swallows FC?
We actually call it a rebirth because we are going back to basics. We are fixing a lot of things. Those who don't know, the club went through a lot of difficulties due to a sponsorship that was declined by the PSL. That actually cost the club about 60 million rands. So we are now, dealt with those issues. It's a rebirth phase. We've got a new coach. His mandate is to make sure that the club stays above top 8. He found the club in a top 8 from a coach that is not so much experienced. So he's the highly experienced coach. We expect the club to finish top 8 and above, not below that.
Let's talk about just the rebirth of the club. There is also the notion that this is a club that only appeals to the older generation of fans. What are you doing to give it the appeal to younger fans? Or is it just about getting the good results that will possibly bring them back?
Look, main thing is about getting good results, but also making sure that you have young people that are within the club that can engage with the younger people, the youth, to make sure that they join the club. We have seen a lot of improvement with youth joining the club, so we are happy with the progress that we are making.
Let's talk about the players. The season is starting on the 5th of August, which is next month. The fixture list is out, and we know a lot of teams have been going on pre-season. Any plans for pre-season? What is the team currently doing with Coach Steve to prepare for the season?
Coach Steve is actually playing a lot of friendly games to get to understand the players. Even today was a training. He's got a friendly game. I know they're leaving for camp on Sunday for a week. When they come, they'll be ready to play their first match. We're still going to sign. There's still another signing that's coming on Friday. It's going to ban the internet like we did with Coach Steve. So I think the Swallow supporters will be very happy.
What areas are you looking at beefing up as far as signing players? I mean, as you say, there's a few players, Lensane Palani just among others, who have joined Moroka Swallows FC. But what areas are you looking at now that you have got a coach who I'm sure will be guiding management into areas that needs to be filled and beefed up?
The area that he identified was the midfield. So he said the spine must be strong. We understand that's a midfield. He doesn't want his defenders working too hard. So the midfielders must do a lot of work, and 1 or 2 strikers. So we are looking at the midfield and the striking force.
David Mogashoa, thank you so much for coming through to talk to us. That is the chairman of Moroka Swallows Football Club, David Mogashoa, talking to us about the rename. Well, maybe going back to the old days, and also the appointment of coach Steve Komphela, saying, well, they broke the bank a little bit to bring him from Mamelodi Sundowns, the champions.